these days we are going to start putting out a blooper reel about what happens right as Chris starts counting down before we start the show. Good morning, Muscatine. We've got a busy day today, but first of all, I want to say congratulations to the Muskie girls softball team. Softball. I just said softball. Soccer played last night. They beat Kennedy 7-0, and will now play Dowling Catholic on Thursday up in Des Moines for the opportunity to go state. So congratulations to them. The first half was kind of tight, and then they just opened it up. Laney scored, I think, 4, 5, 12 goals. I'm not sure exactly, but the girl was on fire. So if you get a chance to drive to Des Moines, they'll be worth the watch. Then the other thing, don't forget, tomorrow night you have Almost Friday Fest down on the riverfront. So make sure that you put that on your calendar and stop by tomorrow night. We are, as you can tell, at UnityPoint for Wellness Wednesday, and I have Melissa and Amy with me. Melissa, if you guys could introduce yourselves real quick, give us a quick idea of what you guys do here at UnityPoint.
Yeah, so my name's Melissa Irmen. I'm a certified nurse midwife, seeing patients here at UnityPoint OBGYN in the clinic here.
I'm Amy Terrill. I'm the Director of Clinic Operations. I help support the 7 clinics in Muscatine and then the Wilton Clinic as well.
Gotcha. So, Melissa, if you could, because you're new here, and there's, I'm going to guess, plenty of people that don't know exactly what the role of a midwife is. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of your background and like what a midwife does in general as part of the OBGYN process.
Sure. So my education began at St. Ambrose University, where I obtained my Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So from there, I went to labor and delivery, which is where I always wanted to be, worked as a nurse, and realized that that was my passion, felt like my calling, but I knew that I wanted more. At the time, I didn't really know what a midwife was, but that service was at the hospital that I worked at. So that ended up being my next career choice. So I went back to school, obtained my master's in midwifery. That was through the University of Illinois at Chicago. So combining my nursing background and midwifery background, I've been caring for women for a little over 12 years. So basically for a midwife, the background needs to be nursing. So you start nursing first, and then you ultimately go back to school, obtain that master's degree, and then take a certification exam. So once you are board certified, then you are a certified nurse midwife. So basically, I can care for women throughout all aspects of their life. So a common misconception when people hear the term midwifery is they typically think OB pregnancy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would have thought too, just because I know nothing, admittedly.
Yeah, and that's, you know, definitely a large component of our profession, which is great and wonderful, beautiful. You know, that's a huge part of what we love, but we can see women for many different things. So we can see patients starting from adolescence through childbearing, pregnancy, postpartum, through the menopausal and postmenopausal years as well.
Gotcha. So, I mean, it sounds like it's just essentially a component of the entire OBGYN clinic, and just sort of like whichever path you're going down works. Does that sound? Because again, I am absolutely probably the wrong person to be asking these questions, right? But when would be, like, if somebody's sitting at home, this is one question that's not on the list. You're gonna love this.
Oh, great.
No, but like, if somebody's sitting at home and they're, you know, thinking if they should like contact you, what are some of the things that like would be a good time to call you? Like if they're experiencing certain things, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so a lot of our like adolescents that seek out our service may be struggling with really like heavy, painful periods. Those things are just beginning, and they might be struggling with that. So seeing them for those reasons, which can lead into the birth control conversations and placing the IUDs and the Nexplanons, doing the routine, you know, pap smears and sexually transmitted infection screenings. So all of those things that are really for our preventative health and just making sure that our health and wellness are on check.
So, you know, and I think it's one of those things, and we often talk about this, especially on Wellness Wednesday out here. When in doubt, reach out, right? Like if you're sitting at home and you're seeing this and like, okay, I've always had a question about this. Even if it's not your lane, you guys can get them to who they need to go to, right? So,
Absolutely.
You know, that's one thing that we always want to make sure that we emphasize is like, if you have a question about your healthcare at home and you're not sure, don't sit there and like wait, put it off. Just pick up the phone, make a quick call, because we all know the first step's going to be the hardest, right? But get that first step out of the way, and then from there, just follow the path, right?
Correct. Yeah, I may not be able to, fix a concern that day or give all the answers that are needed, but I will definitely seek out other options. And if we need to place referrals, will 100% do that.
Yeah, and that's, one thing that's great about UnityPoint as a whole is you guys have a tremendous ability to do that. It doesn't really matter which practitioner you're seeing. If it's out of their lane, they'll pull in whoever they need to and make sure that you've got the coordination of care you need. So don't hesitate to make that first phone call, that first appointment online, whatever it is. So one of the things that, you mentioned, like the early adolescent stuff, then obviously you're going to end up in like that prenatal care area. For those that don't know, like me, what are some of the like key sides of like the prenatal thing? What do women need to be thinking about as they start that process?
Yeah, so it's a super exciting and fun time, and we know our bodies are made to undergo that process. It is a normal process for our body, but we also know that there are disease processes and complications that can happen throughout pregnancy, whether that's the first trimester or the third trimester. So it's super important that we get a phone call when somebody does know that they are pregnant, so we can see them around 8 weeks or so, do an ultrasound, do the routine blood work, kind of just making sure that everything is on a normal path. And if it's not, again, getting them where they need to be or doing more surveillance to make sure that everything's as healthy as possible.
You said surveillance. I love that concept. Like, you know what? I've never actually heard somebody call it surveillance, but all of a sudden you just, that clicked a whole bunch of things in our experience. But that's really what it is. You're just keeping an eye on things.
Right.
Like, and that's, through our experience with our daughter and just all that other stuff, keeping an eye on things and being able to recognize patterns in yourself or in your significant other and then when they're out of that pattern, you know what I mean? Those are phone calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the things that maybe it's an early morning sign of something. You don't have to know what it is. And the one thing that we always talked about a lot was like, as a patient or the significant other or family member of a patient, it's all about translating what you're feeling, what you're experiencing into something that they can like pull in and go, oh, that's, so think about all the little sensations you're feeling and all those sorts of things and try and find as many words as possible to come up with what it is that you're experiencing, because they'll be able to translate it if you can just get it all out, right?
Right.
So, Amy, as we look at this, obviously Melissa's new, and that's obviously an exciting thing for you, I would think, right?
Yes, absolutely is.
So as far as the overall picture here, how do you see this working? What excites you about having her here?
Well, having a midwife back in Trinity Muscatine is super exciting because we have not been able to offer that prenatal services on a full-time status. We were just offering those one time a week with Dr. McCool. So with Melissa here, we're able to open that access up for those expecting parents, and really excited to be able to keep care local and here at Trinity Muscatine during the pregnancy.
So what does how many, and you may not know this off the top of your head, but how big of a population can one midwife take care of? Is this enough? Are we going to need more eventually? Are we going to need 700 midwives because Muscatine's going to grow to 70,000 people in the next 5 years? Or what does the future look like? Do you know?
That's a great question, and our plans are to continue to watch how Melissa does and how her practice grows, and if the need is there, we'll continue exploring and expanding as needed for that.
And that's one thing you guys have always done a great job of, is just kind of reacting to what the community actually needs, because we're, and you hear it in the community all the time, and we're kind of at this weird size, right? Where we're not so small that we have to leave town for everything, but we don't always have a big enough population to support a whole thing. But you guys always do a great job of like throttling with the community and what we need, you know, and that's, you know, we have a lot more here than what most communities our size have. And I'm imagining this is probably one of those types of things. So great job. It's pretty obvious. So what are you looking forward to the most? Like, you know, you're new in the community, obviously, you know, a whole new environment. What excites you about it?
Yeah, so I am just truly just so happy to be here, and everyone has been so welcoming, and so I'm just super grateful for that. And you know, this, from my experience, these are things I have been doing. So practice-wise, things are the same. I'm practicing exactly as I always have, but I'm excited to learn more about the community and to meet new patients and to help their growing families, and to also just help them through every season of life, you know, whether that's as they're going through high school or as they are pregnant and seeing that through, or maybe their kids are in college, and just all these different seasons that patients will be in. I'm just happy to be here and caring for them.
So if somebody wants to schedule an appointment, what's the easiest way, or like what are all the options for getting in touch with you guys?
That might be a good question for
Yeah,
you.
I'll take that one. So at our OBGYN clinic, we offer a variety of services from gynecology to reproductive health, obstetrics, and much more. So the easiest way would be just to call our office at 563-262-4113. You can also visit our website that list out kind of the services and things that we have to offer in our OB clinic.
Yeah, and one thing, folks, if you're searching online, when you get to the Unity, it's a super easy website to navigate. Just click to find a provider, Muscatine. So, but where, like on the campus, where is the OBGYN clinic?
Sure, it's on our Mulberry location. It's at our Mulberry location on our first floor when you walk in, right next to pediatrics, just all the way down on the right-hand side when you enter.
Gotcha. So super easy.
Yeah, super easy.
There's nothing scary about it. Super simple. Everybody here is super welcoming, like always. And don't forget, Chris, weren't we supposed to have what was that thing that I had last time that was super awesome? The little cuddly.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure when you come in, whether it's for an appointment to visit somebody, head into the window. What was that?
I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a teddy bear that.
Yeah, there's like this awesome teddy bear type thing in there that was like
Warm up.
super soft, and it like warms up and holds the temperature. Ooh, that's gonna drive me nuts all day. I sat here with the thing for like 15, 20 minutes. Chris is gonna go find one for us so that we can see what I mean. This is the fun part of doing a live show, is we literally just make it up as we go. So when you think about like this whole process, is there, you know, one or two things that you wish people knew about midwifery, or just that whole process? Like what would you like want somebody to know?
Yeah, I think like I said, that the biggest misconception is that
They're called warmies.
They're called, sorry, it's totally.
Warmies.
Aww.
Yeah, these things are ridiculously awesome. So you can like, you warm them up and then they maintain their temperature, so they're like, you know, if you've got body temperature issues, but also just like keeping you warm and snuggly. So you can
Thank you.
like use that to like manage the stress of the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know what, Chris? We should get one of those like every day for all the guests up here, just so that they've got like something to soothe themselves, because we're so scary.
I think the biggest thing I just want people to know is that I can see patients that are not pregnant. I think that's the biggest misconception around midwifery. But also for everyone to know that routine prenatal appointments, although they might typically be quick as long as things are going okay, they're super important, because we are watching for anything that may not be normal and trying to catch those things early, just to make sure that patients are getting the best care.
Well, and I know I'm going to slaughter this, and I'm sure I will hear about this when I get home, but you know, I know when we started that process, my wife and I, you know, she started taking vitamins and like a whole bunch of other stuff to like set the table to make things easier as we went down the road. And I'll tell you this, I'm glad she handled it, because it was plenty. Like, she was on it, and, you know, it just seems to me, again, from the outside looking in, it was a fairly easy process, like for her. And now, granted, we're older, so this was a while ago, but you know, she was never stressed about it. It was just kind of like, okay, here's the thing that you do to like take care of yourself and put your body and your whole mind in the right position to be able to do something like this. I
Right.
can't imagine what it's like to carry a child, but I would imagine it's kind of like an awesome train wreck. But that's what it looks like from the outside anyway.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful thing. And it is super important that someone is really on top of their health even prior to getting pregnant, kind of in that planning stage, taking their vitamins, you know, working at weight loss if that is something that needs to happen, because we know that that can help set the grounds for a healthier pregnancy. If there are any, you know, concerns, maybe they have had some elevated blood pressure, trying to control these things prior to becoming pregnant is a good thing to try to do.
Yeah, and again, I know I keep saying this, but I don't want anybody to think that I think I know what it's like to be pregnant or anything, right? But it would seem like it's one of those things that if you attack it and handle it beforehand, it's like 10 times easier than after you get pregnant, because there's just, you know, there's a little parasite in there like sucking all your nutrients, and you know, it's a parasite you're gonna love. I love my kid, but you know what I mean? But I mean, in some ways it is kind of like that, because you're like feeding a whole nother being out of there. So
right.
it would seem like you'd want to be in the best possible shape before you start that.
Yep, fitness beforehand is super important. We encourage having some sort of a workout routine in place, whether that's doing an intense workout week, you know, every so often each week, or if it's that just walking every day, we'd say 30 minutes a day, be doing that, because these are things we want them to keep doing while they're pregnant. Not only does it help for a healthy pregnancy, and not always, I don't want to say that, you know, if you're in the best of health that nothing bad's going to happen,
Of course.
but we know that it can decrease certain risks for things. But also, if you think about what the body has to undergo during labor and delivery, I always tell patients, that's your marathon, and you need to train for that. So it's a very physical, you need a lot of endurance and strength to get through that. And the better health that you're in beforehand and maintain that throughout pregnancy, the easier it is on your body for labor and delivery and postpartum when you're recovering.
So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. So what does that look like? Because I mean, I know obviously, like you said, it's a marathon. You get there, you finish the marathon, but that's really not anywhere near the end of it, right? I mean, a woman's body is still changing rapidly afterwards, right?
Right. And that, you know, it's different and it's unique for every patient and really every pregnancy. So, you know, one patient's, you know, first pregnancy and delivery might be completely different. Maybe they had a C-section the second time, and that might be new to them. So it's going to be very individualized per person, but there's different things we might need to monitor. If there was a complication in pregnancy, maybe they had high blood pressure, their risk is still there postpartum. So we need to check in sooner, make sure things are healing from that standpoint. Or if they had a really tough labor or maybe extensive, tearing or needed surgery or anything like that, we really need to check in with them and make sure things are healing appropriately. So from the physical standpoint, it is really important that we're checking in with these patients soon after, but also from the mental. Mm-hmm. So not only are they healing from everything their body's been through, they are now trying to keep a human alive. And it's a lot of responsibility. Maybe they have other kids at home, but there's also, that postpartum depression, something real that can happen. And unfortunately, it happens often and we don't always know who it's going to happen to. So seeing patients to really check in, how are things physically? How are you mentally? Are you coping and adjusting well? And if not, hey, we're here for you. Here's what we can do. Let's get some resources going and kind of watch things more closely.
Yeah, and I try and correlate this to something I might understand, right? Like, because, we've always talked about, when we spoke with new nurses, the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? And sympathy is feeling for someone, empathy is feeling with someone. And so, as we have these conversations, folks, that's where I'm trying to come from on this, just so you know. And it would seem like to me, almost like, I don't want to say like the death of a family member, because that's probably not quite the right way, but like when you have like a huge life change, it would seem like what actually finishing the pregnancy would be like, because you know you've got this thing that's been a part of you for 9 months. It's obviously really tied to you. It's, you know, everything, I don't want to say everything you are for that 9 months, but it's a pretty big chunk of who you become, right? And all of a sudden it's just poof, pulled out, right? And sometimes that feels good, sometimes it feels horrible, and I would imagine that changes depending on the day, the time, and you know, I wouldn't want to necessarily compare it to grief, but maybe somewhat like how you manage that big change in your life. Is that even remotely close?
Yeah, I definitely think.
For a guy like trying to come at it who has no clue. Right?
Yeah, you know, there really is a beautiful bond that's developed between a mom and a fetus. And, you know, of course, you know, they're excited to meet their new baby and to navigate that new season of their life. But it is also like saying goodbye to a really beautiful time as well. You know, and if they go back to work, you know, so many weeks later, they're not feeling those kicks. You know, baby's at home with somebody else, and that can be a really hard transitional time.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, I'm thankful that I don't have to do it, and people that are way stronger than me are the ones that do it. So
I would say kudos to you for trying to understand. You know,
Yeah,
that it's hard for you, you know, to fully understand that, but you're trying, and that's wonderful.
yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, I think if I could give any advice to the men out there that are watching, that's it. Just listen, you know, admit you have no idea what they're going through, but try and find some common ground. You know, again, not to compare, contrast, compete with what they're going through, not that at all, but just like, okay, I'm trying to connect this to something I know that might show you that, like, yeah, I'm trying to get it, even though I have no idea in reality.
And I think too, just like being in tune with like, okay, maybe, you know, I can't do this and this, but I can help in these areas, and that will ultimately help the mom.
And when in doubt, go get the peanut butter and pickles and just do it. Like, don't ask, just don't try and understand it. Luckily, I'll say this, Melissa, I do have to give a shout out to her through all 3 pregnancies, was an absolute champ. You know, there were some complications on several, but you know, tremendous respect for that whole process. So, holy cow, that was a lot. But quick recap for those that were following along at home. So you're back, well, you're not back. You've been here about a month. The midwifery program's up, running, ready to go. Give a call out. And I think the biggest thing that I took away is you don't have to be pregnant, right? Like anywhere through there, almost, I don't want to say you use like a coordinator of care, but like get that first step in, and they'll make sure that you end up where you need to if it's not there. So what else, what biggest 2 or 3 points you'd like people to take away from today?
Making that first phone call, like you said. If they're scared to do it, don't be. Just getting into the door and having that first appointment really can help set things up. Whether that's wanting to get pregnant or needing birth control, we are here for you, and don't be scared. There's nothing to be scared about. And like we mentioned, you don't have to be pregnant. So it can be for just a routine, you know, preventative physical, you know, for sports or whatever it might be. You don't have to be pregnant. But I also love my pregnant mamas. So if you are pregnant, I'd absolutely love to see you and make sure that things are going as planned. And if they're not, this is what we need to do and help sorting that out as well.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, welcome to Muscatine.
Thank
And
you.
Amy, thank you for doing everything you do throughout all the clinics and just keeping everything. And I mean, like, I can't imagine what it would be like to try and balance the healthcare needs of a community like this. So I'll stick with what I do. As long as you guys keep doing that, I'll stay out of your way and just help you whenever you need it.
Ask the questions and give the warmies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like seriously, those things are awesome. Like, and if you need like a gift for someone, just stop out and get one. Like, they don't have to be here. Just, they're awesome. So, I think with that, is there anything else? I mean, I feel like we covered a lot.
I think that covers it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
So, Muscatine, that is your Wellness Wednesday, and we will be back with you tomorrow morning.